live? I'm going to assume that we're live and just get started. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Adrian, and I am the Chief Executive Officer at the Workers Lab, where our purpose is to give new ideas about increasing power for workers to succeed and to flourish. And I'm joined today by my dear friend and colleague, Rachel Schneider. Hi, Rachel.
Hi there.
I'm so happy that you were able to talk with me for a little bit. Folks, we're here today to talk about workers and very specifically about how to innovate and create technology that empowers workers, which Rachel understands dearly, and that's why I'm thrilled to have her today with me. Rachel has worked with the Workers Lab for a long time, and we admire her for many reasons. Chief among them is her ability to sort of traverse the labor movement and the movement for financial technology with ease and elegance and heart and conscience. She's dedicated this moment in her career to creating technology that helps working people live better, more financially secure lives. And I'm so grateful that she agreed to talk with me today. So Rachel, can you introduce yourself to the group a little bit? Tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to know the Workers Lab. I think that would be great.
Sure, I'm happy to. And I am going to echo what Adrian has just said. I'm so delighted to be here at Fintech South, even though we're not all together in Atlanta. And really particularly delighted to be here with such an extraordinary leader. I just really admire the work that the Workers Lab and Adrian have been doing. So I spent most of my professional life at the Financial Health Network. Some of you may have heard my longtime friend and boss and the founder of Financial Health Network, Jennifer Tescher, in her keynote conversation with Franz Posch of PayPal on Monday at FinTech South. And so if you heard that conversation, you know a lot about the kinds of things I've spent my time working on. I led consumer and industry research there for about a decade. Which means I got very deep in following fintech for a long time. I also partnered with Jonathan Mordock of NYU to write a book called The Financial Diaries, which was a very deep dive into the financial lives of working Americans. And it's that work that led me to this conversation we're having today, because it led me to think more about how work and financial health and well-being intersect, right? I had been spending all of my time thinking about financial services and how to use them to build financial health for struggling Americans. And I still deeply committed to that goal. I think it really matters. But the fact is that the biggest drivers of financial health, they happen at work or at home, not at the bank, even if it is the greatest neobank in the world. So as we think about how to be great employers, as we think about on this track that's around diversity and talent, how to make sure that you can attract the best people, keep the best people, you really, really have to think about the financial health of your workforce as part of that thought process. And it's that kind of thinking at this intersectionality of work, talent, the changing nature of our economy and financial services and technology that led me both to the work I've been doing with the Workers Lab and to founding Canary, which is work I'm delighted to share more about during this session.
Thanks. And folks, what I love about Rachel, and you can see it in what she just said, was that she's very clearly made a choice to use technology to do good in people's lives. And I really do think that's the ball game, right? Particularly when it comes to technology aimed at workers and working people. You know, in a lot of the conversations that I'm involved in, Rachel, technology is sort of talked about as the devil, right? But I always say that technology is actually not the devil. It really is in the intent behind that how that technology is going to be used, right? And so I believe, and the Workers Lab values that rather than simply replacing human labor, technology can augment it, right? The same technology that generates really unsteady schedules that wreak havoc in the lives of workers in retail, in the restaurant industry, is the same technology that can be used to create steady scheduling, right? So we just have to make a choice. People in power have to make choices about whether they're going to use innovation and tech for good or for bad. And I think you're a terrific example of that, because you've chosen to use it to do good. But I digress. I digress. Let me talk a little bit about the Workers Lab and what we do. So for folks who aren't familiar with us, we were founded in 2014 as a sort of offshoot project of SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, which really recognized the need for more innovation in service of workers, right? A place that served both as a hub and an engine for innovation in labor. And that is still true today about us. Like I said earlier, our purpose is to give new ideas about increasing power for workers a chance. And many times those ideas come in the form of technology, social entrepreneurs that are trying to create tools, apps, models, et cetera, to give workers more power. And the power term can be a little vague sometimes, right? So I like to explain very clearly what we mean by when we talk about worker power. And we sort of take it back to like science class, right? Thinking about power as a force that allows workers to achieve certain outcomes in their lives, right? So power in service of what specifically for workers? What should we be building power in service of for workers? And so our frame is pretty broad because the range of what workers need is really broad, right? Not only do workers need to be safe and healthy as we're seeing now, in the world or have recourse at work in the form of rights, they also need to be financially secure. They need to have some semblance of control over their work and over their lives. They need to have opportunities to be mobile. And they need to be able to participate freely and easily in our democracy, right? And innovation can certainly be used to achieve all of those outcomes in workers' lives. The way we go about sort of bringing that sort of vision for power to life is in two programs, and I'll talk about them super quickly. The first is the Innovation Fund. This is our signature program. And the main way we find, fund, learn from, and share ideas with people in power, making choices about work and workers. And the second is our design sprints, which Rachel has been a critical partner in since the inception of. We partner with Google on these design sprints, which is essentially it's a time-bound 5-phase process for solving problems and getting a product to market very quickly. And the Workers Lab brings sort of convening power, sets the table for this kind of experimentation and innovation to happen, which we think is really, really exciting. We do these once a year. And like I said, Rachel was a critical player in our first design sprint, which was a sprint to conduct the largest emergency cash transfer experiment in the country at the time. This was 3 years ago now, before I had even joined the lab. And so I want to stop there on the Workers Lab and invite Rachel to talk a little bit about that sprint, the story of that design sprint focused on emergency cash transfers, why we chose the topic. And Rachel, if you could share a little bit about what you think the biggest takeaways were there, I think I would really appreciate it.
Thanks, I'm happy to. And I think this is particularly relevant given what we've seen over the last 6 months with COVID. So we started the design sprint with a problem statement, not with a solution statement, right? That's core to the idea of a design sprint. So we started with the problem statements of gig work is rising, and that's undermining a set of protection and benefits that traditional W-2 workers, in theory, have access to. At the same time, we thought that by working with gig workers, we'd be able to shine a spotlight on problems that traditional W-2 hourly workers also have, right? Mm-hmm. And those problems were really around the fact that many workers do not have a safety net of some kind. Because incomes have not kept pace with the cost of living, many people don't earn enough to save a material amount for emergencies. And so what you see is that 2/3 of workers don't have $1,000 saved in case of an emergency. And so we wanted to be able to shine a spotlight on that problem and explore some solutions to that problem. And we thought if we did so in the context of an existing conversation around how to make the social safety net more portable, more mobile for independent workers, we'd be able to do something really useful and interesting. And so since we started with that problem statement, we thought about a range of solutions, and we settled on doing a test around emergency cash because we wanted to push the boundary as much as possible. Like it felt at the time like the most ambitious version, right? Because you could try and solve that safety net problem with other things, with savings, with loans, with insurance. And we explored those ideas, and we thought they had value. We thought the most difficult to do thing was, well, how do we pilot emergency cash?
Yeah.
And since the innovation, the Workers Lab exists to push the boundary on innovation, it seemed like a natural place to do that. And I think some of our takeaways that were really surprising were, first of all, we thought of it at first as, well, we're offering free money. Won't everybody come and just ask for free money? But you know what? They won't. People don't ask for more than they need. People are mindful, especially if you frame a fund as being about helping a group. People are mindful of not overdoing what they take for themselves. They also don't necessarily trust that it's an offer that's for real. And this, came through again when we started doing more COVID-related emergency payments. A point that's important to make for this audience in particular is that the lack of real-time payments is a genuine pain point. So in executing against this challenge, right, where we offered emergency cash grants to people, getting people the money is actually a really hard part. And it's because we don't have immediate peer-to-peer payments really up and running in our country in the way we need them to be. And that feels like a convenience point if you have a financial cushion. But if you're short on rent, about to be evicted, and someone has offered you financial help, you need that money now, not in 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, especially during COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'd say is that the right money at the right time does matter. It matters. We saw meaningful positive impacts in people's lives from receiving a grant. Some of that's self-evident, right? You gave people money, it's going to help them. But we saw things like the ability to earn more income because you had fixed your car and could now go back to work. Or if the money came at the right time in alignment with other kinds of supports, it would be the difference between being homeless and not being homeless, right? So we also saw things that seem smaller, like the avoidance of late fees, penalties, diminishment of financial stress. Those things really matter because they buy people some time to figure out the next step on their own.
Right. So we're running short on time, Rachel. So let's practice some speed dating, if you will.
All right. We're going to be super fast.
Let's talk about Canary really quickly and give folks a peek into what you're building, because I think it's really exciting.
Oh, thank you. So Canary, which is the startup that I'm building, incubated at the Workers Lab, is built on this idea. So what we're doing is we partner with employers to be able to offer emergency cash grant as a workplace benefit. And, I feel like the case for this was made by COVID, so we don't have to really belabor it. The point is that this is infrastructure that needs to exist so that you can deploy it with your workforce when you're ready, when you need to.
Cool. And, in addition to really informing the work of Canary, the work we did together on emergency cash really did set the stage for our coronavirus relief fund, which we set up very quickly. It was like a partnership between me, Rachel, and Adam Roseman, who's a terrific partner of the Workers Lab. We sort of all bumped heads and very quickly threw up a coronavirus relief fund specifically for non-W-2 workers and some low-wage part-time W-2 workers. Last thing I'll say is that all of this work continues to inform the work that we do together. So very presently, we are again partnering with Steady and Adam's team to help them build or help run a design sprint around technology, a tech solution to mitigate the challenges in the administration of unemployment insurance benefits, very specifically to non-W-2 workers. Very quickly, the CARES Act that was passed a few months ago made an entirely new universe of workers eligible to receive UI, the sort of PUA program, right? The problem, of course, is that there's virtually no infrastructure to administer those payments and those checks to those workers who desperately need them. And so the terrific team at Steady is hard at work building this technology and has allowed the Workers Lab to wrap a design sprint around that work. And we're going from state house to state house, knocking on doors, hopefully to pilot that technology in 2 states, hopefully very soon, because as folks have been reading in the news, some of these workers have been in a backlog without unemployment checks for months. And so wanted to put that out there to
Hi there. It looks like we may have lost Adrian, and for a moment, my screen was frozen too. So I'm sorry for the tech challenges. I know everybody's experiencing those, so thanks for bearing with us. I just want to say, on behalf of both Adrian and I, thank you so much for joining this session. We're thinking seriously about these issues that really matter ultimately for the financial health of our nation, the individual workers that we are each engaged with. And as a last word, I would simply say, that if you want to think more about these issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at Work with Canary or to Adrian at the Workers Lab. And remember, the workers that we are thinking about are carrying the weight of the world are on their shoulders right now. And technology really has the ability to make their lives easier. And here in the fintech world, we have just a massive opportunity to do well and do good at the same time. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the conference.